Greetings to our listeners. Today we will talk about Russian serial killer Sergei Ryakhovsky. Click subscribe button to see more content like this. In the early 90s, police began to find corpses one after another in Russia's Moscow region. The victims found didn't have much in common. Most of these corpses, consisting of old women, children, and adult men, had been sexually assaulted, and behind all of this was a giant man who was once quite naive but turned into a completely different person as a result of the events he experienced. Sergei Ryakhovsky was born on December 29, 1962 in Balashikha, Russia. Sergei was quite large for his age. When he was 6 months old, he weighed almost 11 kilos, but his health was very poor and he often fell ill. Sergei, who constantly caught colds, had pneumonia. His mother was worried about all his illnesses and was trying to treat him very well. However, there was another problem the family was dealing with. Sergei couldn't speak until he was 3 years old. The reason for this would be revealed later. Sergei had a brain injury due to birth trauma. When Sergei's mother gave birth, doctors found out that the baby was very large, but the doctors ignored this because they did not want to perform a cesarean section. As a result, Sergei suffered birth trauma. Being very kind to animals as a child, Sergei cried when his parrot. He was not skilled at communicating with others. That's why he took refuge in animals. In addition, he would miss his classes very often due to his illness. When he would go to school, his mother would personally take him by holding Sergei's hand. Both his mother's overprotective behavior and Sergei's extreme height caused him to be constantly bullied by his classmates. In one of these days, Sergei came across a kitten on the road and wanted to take it home. When his family saw Sergei's fondness for the cat, they accepted it. But the kitten fell ill and died, and Sergei could not recover for a month after this incident. Years later, Sergei enrolled at a university to become an electrician, and in the meantime, he started working as an electrician at a local factory for a year. But later he stopped working and started looking for different additional jobs. However, he mostly relied on his family and lived off their pension. Sergei's love life was not going well either. Sergei started dating a young girl, but the girl rejected him due to his rude behavior and ended the relationship very soon. After all these failures, Sergei's psyche was badly affected. Sergei's poor communication skills caused him to be lonely. In 1982, dark days started for Sergei. He became interested in old women and began to follow lonely old women at night. Sergei attacked 10 women in this way. His last victim managed to escape with screams, and the people around caught Sergei and handed him over to law enforcers. Sergei was arrested for his crimes on November 26, 1982, and sentenced to 4 years in prison. However, there are some rumors that people imprisoned for sexual assault were raped in prisons. For this reason, Sergei was probably subjected to harassment and humiliation during the 4 years he spent in prison, and this created a great hatred in Sergei, especially towards homosexual people. He decided that he had to wipe them off the face of the earth. Thus, he believed that they would reincarnate as normal people again. On January 3, 1988, he tried to attack a woman again, but she managed to escape and survived. However, his first murder would occur a few months later, on June 19, 1988. Sergei met a man named Anatoly Vilkin in Moscow. This man, who was married and had children, made an offer to Sergei in exchange for money. Sergei agreed to this offer. They agreed to meet near a park the following day. A man had a country house there. Before reaching the house, Sergei attacked the man with a screwdriver and killed him. Knowing that the man was secretly gay, Sergei left a body naked by the tree so that the man's sexual identity would be revealed. After this incident, in July, Sergei started preying on old women again. He started following old women and encountered Claudia Koklova near a forest. He stabbed the woman 14 times with a screwdriver and then fled the scene, stealing her war veteran certificate and 45 rubles. But surprisingly, the old woman survived this incident and was found by a neighbor. She was hospitalized. However, she passed away a few days later. Sergei also killed an old woman in the forest. In January 1989, a 16-year-old boy set out to the park to ski. While he was heading towards the park, he crashed into a passerby. A person the child hit was Sergei Ryakhovsky. Since the boy did not apologize to him, Sergei got very angry and started chasing the boy. After finally managing to catch him, he strangled the child with a scarf and left the body without even bothering to hide it. He took the child's skis and threw them somewhere else. The child's body would be found by his father, who had been searching for him. This murder would give detectives their first serious clue. The police found a blurred fingerprint of Sergei on one of the skis. They also realized from the marks at the scene that the person they were looking for was a tall man. However, the murders were committed so independently of each other that it would not be easy to find Sergei. After this incident, Sergei attempted murder twice more, but failed both times. His first victim was an old woman, but she was dressed so thickly that she was able to escape the wounds inflicted by Sergei. The other victim managed to escape by biting her finger when Sergei was about to attack her. In addition to this psychopathic tendency, Sergei was also interested in writing novels. He even had a novel that he wrote but could not complete. This novel, called Starfall, told the story of a great commander who traveled through space and eliminated different criminals and pirates using his flamethrower. It was quite obvious that he enjoyed describing the executions carried out by this imaginary great commander. Although there were 3 versions of the novel, none were completed. Sergei also had a diary. The distances between towns and the prices of train tickets were written in the diary. In addition, he drew red and blue coffins for each person he sacrificed. After his unsuccessful attacks, he cut off the head of a 45-year-old woman and left it next to the body in July 1990. In February 1991, he added a 48-year-old woman named Tatiana Norkin to his list of victims. In 1992, Sergei went looking for gay men again and went to a park in Moscow where gay men hung out. Here he received an offer of intimacy from a 60-year-old man named Nikolai Belkin. They went together to a quiet place in the park, and Sergei added another victim to his list. Although Sergei generally had some tools with him for the murders he would commit, the crime scene of the murders he committed looked so chaotic that it was very difficult to solve the case. He committed all his murders brutally and seemed to enjoy tearing his victims to pieces. At the same time, the murder tools were often improvised, and he generally preferred to use items belonging to his victims. A next murder was committed about a month later at the same place, under almost similar circumstances. This time the victim was a 38-year-old man named Oleg Bolden. In both of these incidents, the police examined the traces at the scene and obtained Sergei's DNA for the first time. Because traces of Sergei's sperm were found in both cases, and when the detectives compared these samples, they realized that the same person was involved in both cases. In fact, the police did not have any suspicions about the murders, such as a serial killer, because, as we mentioned before, all murders seemed independent of each other. In fact, 15 different criminal cases were filed for this reason. Sergei fortunately failed in his next 2 attempts. In January 1993, he encountered a 73-year-old old man named Boris Ospov in a forest. Although the man tried to defend himself with the axe in his hand, Sergei took the axe from the man's hand and chopped his victim into pieces there. Sergei was always interested in the places where he committed the murders, and for this reason he would revisit the crime scenes. After this incident, Sergei went to visit the scene and see that the body was still there and continued to dismember it in. Actually, he didn't know why he did this because he had no intention of hiding or destroying the body. He would leave the body where it was again. In 1993, detectives were able to draw a detailed sketch of the killer by getting a description of the killer from a woman who had survived Sergei's failed attack. Police officers were patrolling train stations and forests with these robotic pictures. In March 1993, Sergei began following a woman named Olga Shuko as she walked home from the bus stop. As the woman approached the countryside, he attacked her and dragged her towards an abandoned barn. Here he added another victim to his list by torturing the woman in various ways. The police who discovered the crime scene found another abandoned barn while scanning the area. There was a rope hanging inside the barn. The police suspected that this rope might have been prepared for the killer's next victim and decided to set up an ambush here. Sergei's next victim would be a 13-year-old boy. While leaving a train in a suburb of Moscow, Sergei accidentally dropped his wallet on the ground and saw a child handing his wallet towards him. After a small talk with the child, Sergei managed to gain the child's trust, and after chatting the child up to the forest, he committed yet another terrible murder. After dismembering the body, he set some of its pieces on fire along with the child's school books. Sergei, who was hunting again after this incident, spotted a 62-year-old woman near a train station, but the woman realized that she was being followed and tried to use pepper gas. However, she could not stop Sergei, and thus Sergei would commit his last murder with a knife. But this time, unlike his other murders, Sergei left a note on the woman's leg that said "Hello from Chechnya," even though he didn't know why he committed murder. For the first time, he wanted to blame someone else. Thus, the police would think that this murder was committed by a Chechen criminal. However, this would be the first and last day Sergei made plans on a corpse. After the incident, Sergei decided to return to the barn where he had prepared the rope. So the police were not wrong. Sergei was using these abandoned barns and setting traps. When Sergei arrived at the barn, the police were waiting for him in an ambush, and when they saw Sergei approaching, one of the officers approached him under the pretext of asking for a cigarette, but Sergei noticed something strange and started running quickly. Sergei Ryakhovsky, who was eventually caught by the police, was a huge man, 1.98 meters tall and weighing 136 kilograms. The police had to take out their guns because they could not handcuff him. Although Sergei only confessed to one murder at this time, the next day when detectives took him to the scene where he killed the 13-year-old boy, he began to confess everything and did not show any feelings of guilt during interrogation. He could not hide the pleasure on his face when he was shown photographs of the crime scene where he could see the bodies of the victims. He even specifically asked to see a photograph of one of his victims at the time of his arrest. Sergei explained the reason for his murders by saying that his mind was blurred and he could not stop himself. But despite his various sexual and psychiatric deviations, he was considered sane. He was found fit to stand trial in 1995, and according to some sources, the death penalty was requested for 18 proven murders. Although different sources say that this number is 22, there is a possibility that it is much higher. After Sergei heard the news of the execution, he became very angry and was trying to appeal the court decision by writing letters and asking for pardon. Finally, in 1996, a moratorium on death penalties was introduced in Russia, and there was talk of abolishing the death penalty. After Russia temporarily abolished the death penalty in order to become a member of the Council of Europe, Sergei Ryakhovsky took advantage of this decision and was sentenced to life imprisonment. Sergei Ryakhovsky, who was held in a maximum security prison until 2007, died in November 2007 due to tuberculosis.